Like I said, we are presented by FanDuel here at the Big Ten Huddle, and we very much appreciate you being here with us. We have three games in the first segment, and then we're going to get to our SEC upset pick. And then in the second segment, we have three more games. That'll be a different podcast. So if you're listening to this one on Wednesday morning, the three next games will be released on podcast on Thursday morning. The three games we're going to cover in this first segment: Indiana at Iowa, UCLA at Northwestern, and then Ohio State at Washington. Should be a good time. Let's see who we got here in the chat with us. John says 1000% separation Saturday, round one. I like that. I like that alliteration there. Do you agree with that, Zach?
Oh yeah, separation Saturday. I mean, that's been a description for weekends like this for a long time, and this is legitimately separation Saturday for the Big Ten for sure.
For sure, for sure. We got Doug with us. Doug, appreciate you being here. He says, "Yeah, I didn't think about that. This Saturday we'll start separating from wheat from the chaff." Yeah, this is going to be a big Saturday. Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State gets their first road test at Washington. It's going to be a good time. Caitlin here with us. Caitlin, we appreciate you being here. She says, hopefully Xavier Scott makes a full recovery. Really bad for Illinois to lose him, but worse for the guy who had been great draft grades last year, but chose to come back and help his team. Yeah, Zach, you were just expressing your sadness for Xavier Scott. Him most likely out for a good amount of the year. Could be out for the whole year. We'll see. But obviously, we hope that doesn't happen. Hopefully, he's able to get back here. What are your thoughts on Xavier Scott?
It stinks, but next man up, right? And Illinois has got to figure out next man up fast because they've got the Trojans coming to town. But yeah, feel awful for Scott. Great player. I think his draft stock will be just fine though.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. He's a really good player, and whoever he goes to is they're gonna have a really good player, somebody who grinds, somebody who works hard, and is always gonna continue to get better because that's what we've seen at his career at Illinois. So, all right, Zach. Without further ado, I say we get on into it. In our very first game, the Hoosiers will love who we're talking about first. It's Indiana at Purdue. Really looking forward to this game. What?
Purdue.
Oh, Iowa. Sorry. That's
Listen, Iowa fans are already Iowa fans are already mad at us. Don't offend them further by calling them Purdue.
Yeah, no, it was not. It was not intentional. I apologize. This game's gonna be Saturday. It is going to be at this one's at what is it? 7:30? No, this one is at 3:30, I believe, on Peacock. You have to get the Peacock to watch this one. Indiana currently favored by 7.5 on FanDuel, and over/under set at 48.5. And I gotta be honest, Zach, this is kind of a very interesting matchup on the field, but off the field, this is kind of like the fastest rising team in the Big Ten, right? I mean, this is a team that was just last year bottom tier of the Big Ten coming into it. They raised up to about tier 2 status, nearing tier 1. And then now you have a lot of people saying this is a tier 1 team in the Big Ten. I know I'm saying that. I feel very confident in this team. But I got to be honest, Zach, there is still some people out there doubting this. And I got to be honest, there's a reason why you come to the Big Ten Huddle for your Big Ten coverage. Because not everybody covers the Big Ten as well as us. And I'm not trying to toot our own horns, but I've heard a number of quotes this week about these different games. And I just want to share some of them. This one I heard from a show. I won't name the shows because I don't want to disparage them. But the host of the show said, "I don't understand why everyone is so high on Indiana. People keep overreacting to just one win." I'm not sure if this person watched football last year or not, but
do they watch the SEC?
Yeah, there's obviously a lot more going on in Indiana than just one win. So, Zach, what are your thoughts? Valid criticism or not?
Oh, it's stupid criticism.
Okay.
Like
good.
So I will reference someone though as I think about this matchup in a positive light. And actually I'll probably bring him up a second time as we talk about Illinois as well. Todd McShay, ball knower. I thought he had some good things to say about Indiana. And I appreciated his take, particularly about Indiana's efficiency, because he said one thing he said, and I was like, I want to think about it more. I don't know if I fully agree with him or not, but he mentioned that while the talent level, like as an NFL draft evaluator, may not be at the level of an Ohio State or a Penn State, they really make up for it in efficiency. And what he said at the end of his whole eval of what Indiana did to Illinois was that he would not be shocked if they got Penn State or Oregon this year. So like he's a believer in the Hoosiers, but I particularly appreciated his point about the efficiency because I think we saw that a year ago, and I think that's one of Kurt Signetti's trademarks is they're going to beat you by being excellent in their system and their scheme, which gives me a little bit of a concern against Iowa.
Mm.
Because one of the things that I think Iowa might have a slight advantage in, or at least a stalemate, is on the lines of scrimmage. And so I know I mentioned last week, I think Indiana's going to go and crush Iowa. But as I thought about it more, I think there is a potential for Indiana to maybe look a little bit more mortal this week, particularly as they go to Kinnick.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very interesting game, right? I mean, there's some similarities to the Ohio State game in this one. And no, I'm not saying that Iowa is Ohio State from last year. Obviously, that's not the case. But what I am saying is that we see some similar stuff to Indiana going to Ohio State, and I think if Indiana comes out with a win in this one, and not just wins, but wins convincingly, that's going to be just one more talking point for why this Indiana team is not who they were last year, and people need to stop overlooking them, right? I mean, this is a road environment that is very good. Kinnick Stadium is a very good stadium. It's a very good home field advantage for Iowa. They've done a great job there. I think the stat I saw was 32 ranked teams have come into Kinnick Stadium, and only like 8 of them the past, I think it's 10 years or something. I'm getting the stat wrong, but the point is that a number of ranked teams have come into Kinnick Stadium, and only 3 of them left with a win. It's incredible what they're able to do and how much Iowa has been able to take down teams who come in very highly favored. And one of those teams was Ohio State in 2017, I believe it was, when they came in and they were able to make it happen. So obviously, I'm not saying that this Iowa team is exactly that team or anything like that, but I am just trying to reference the home field advantage for Iowa and how this is not just an easy game that you can say, oh, Iowa's not been good this season, and so Indiana is going to take care of them. Iowa's a better team than people realize. They're still going to win 7, 8, 9 games at the very least, or at 9 games at the most, 7 games at the very least, and it's still a team that you have to prepare for and be ready for. And the defensive line of this Iowa team is going to give Indiana everything they can handle. Ohio State last year gave them a little bit more than just the defensive line, but still, that offensive line was an issue on the road, and we'll see if Kirk Cinetti and those guys have been able to rectify what happened last year.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest concern for the Hoosier if you're the Hoosiers, right? Because like I thought Illinois' defense is good, right? Like Gabe Yakus, and obviously there's the secondary issues, but like they had good guys in the front seven. Iowa's a little bit of a different animal with Aaron Graves, Max Llewellyn, like really, really good personnel up front. But I do think there is a matchup advantage for the Hoosiers with the receivers. I think Surratt, Cooper, like I think they can win one-on-one battles. I know they'll probably play more zone than man, but I think those are matchups that they will like. So if they can give Mendoza time, or if Mendoza can manipulate the pocket a little bit with his mobility, I still like the Hoosiers to be able to exploit that defense in the passing game. I do wonder how much they will be able to get from the running game because of maybe a stalemate, more of a stalemate up front.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I'm Indiana, obviously you need to have that running game working because what happened even last year with Michigan, right? When you were at home, and that was a home game,
Mm.
when Michigan completely stunted that run game that Indiana had, it really threw them through it. But thankfully, Michigan didn't have much of an offense, and so they weren't able to do anything. And I know Iowa gets labeled for not much of an offense and stuff like that as well, but we need to remember this is a team with a good running game, and Mark Gronowski adds to that running game as well. You look at the stats from his last game, like 186 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. People are going to look at that and be like, okay, he still isn't throwing the ball all that well. But he did have three rushing touchdowns on the ground. And so even though this is not a player that is, substantially increasing the passing game to the point that I think some Iowa fans were wanting him to, he has at least added the portion of his legs to this game as well, which I think is going to be huge. Now, I should say Jazz Patterson is out for this game. Kirk Ferentz announced that. Looks like Seth Anderson is questionable. I didn't see any for sure news on him. And then Ostrenga, the tight end, he's still out for the season. So you're still down the one tight end there. So, but Zach, did you know Iowa is actually a higher rated team according to FEI than Illinois is?
That's not surprising to
Not
me.
surprising to you?
I
Okay.
thought you were about to say they were higher rated than Indiana, and I'm like, throw the whole thing
No.
out. But
No, FEI, I believe, has Indiana, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, and USC is either top 10 or fringe top 10 in FEI.
mm,
So five teams from the Big Ten. Pretty
there we
good, I
go.
think.
There we go.
But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like the combination of Iowa and Illinois, and the idea that Iowa possibly better than Illinois this season. You and I were on the Illinois train, but obviously that game did not go, inspire a whole bunch of confidence in a lot of people. That obviously could bring them down. But I mean, do you think this Iowa team is possibly better than Illinois? I mean, it's obviously a road game for Indiana, so it's more difficult in that area. But
I'm not sure I'm ready to say that they're a better team, but I do think they're a better matchup because of the lines of scrimmage. I mean,
mhm.
we saw Illinois struggle on the offensive line against against Duke. We saw them obviously just get hammered by the Hoosiers last week. I don't think you're going to see that level of dominance against Iowa's offensive line. It's a really strong unit. It's a top 5, maybe a top 3 unit in the conference. So I think again both lines of scrimmage are I think markedly better. Particularly I think the offensive line over is more uh excellent than Illinois could be. So I'm curious about what it's going to look like for the Hoosiers on defense. I know we make fun of Iowa's offense all the time, but this actually might be a better matchup, uh, a harder matchup, I should say, for Indiana than Illinois was.
I agree. I agree. I got the stat here, so I want to correct my stat I tried to give earlier and failed miserably at. So this one comes from the Hawkeye Report. Let's see who wrote this. I want to make sure I give them credit for the stat. Kyle Huesman, Huesmann, Hausman, how you pronounce that?
Mm,
As you all know, I'm terrible with names. The stat is over the last 25 years, 32 ranked teams have visited Kinnick Stadium. Just three have won by 10 or more points. 2000 Ohio State, 2006 Ohio State, 2022 Michigan, while eight top 10 teams have lost in Iowa City during that span. Kirk Ferentz knows how to get his team ready for these games. All right,
mm.
so I got the stat correct. Just make sure I did that. Um, Zach, there's another aspect of this game that I think we also need to be thinking about, especially when comparing it to the Ohio State game last year. Ohio State, obviously, that game. Um, Indiana really struggled with Curtis Rourke being, sitting in the pocket, not really having much mobility. As we learned later on, he tore his ACL. Fernando Mendoza has more mobility than Curtis Rourke did, and I think the RPO game in this one is going to be very, very important for Indiana, especially if that defensive line starts coming after Fernando Mendoza and really giving him fits. If Indiana can start accomplishing the RPO game at a high level, not that they haven't been already, obviously they have been, but if that can be done at a high level against Iowa, that could completely nullify this Iowa pass rush and give Indiana even more of an advantage.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the key to the game is I think if Indiana can find ways to nullify the pass rush and be able to do like RPO all game long, this is gonna be a long day for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, Zach, let's get to predictions here. Or any players or anything you want to mention? Anything else before we get to predictions?
I mean, I am curious how Mark Gronowski performs against what I think is a very good defense, but I know Jazz Patterson's out. I think the Hawkeyes will have some success on the ground, and I think Gronowski. I'm curious to see how Gronowski performs against. I think what's probably the best defense he's faced to date, and I don't think that's really saying much. But Indiana's legit defensively, so I am curious about how he does. I do expect them to have at least some semblance of a run game against the Hoosiers. I I think I see this a little closer. I still have Indiana covering. I think it is a cover, but I do think there is reason to caution Indiana fans that this one may not. I would say it probably will not look like it did last week. It's on the road. It's at Kinnick. To your point, Kinnick's a really tough place to play. And I think Iowa will be able to junk things up just enough where it looks a little clunky. And I actually wouldn't be surprised to see some people kind of question Indiana afterwards and say, oh, we jumped on board too quickly. No, don't do that if it looks a little clunky. I've got 34-24 Indiana.
Hmm. I do not think that is a bad prediction at all. I think obviously Kinnick Stadium could be a very tough place, and the offensive line, the defensive line for Iowa is something you cannot overlook. I do think sometimes people look at the past, Mark Gronowski and kind of get too enamored with that and don't look at the whole package of the line of scrimmage and everything else that there is. So I hear you, and while I see what you're saying, this Indiana team doesn't do anything but blow people out. I mean, they last year they were close to against Michigan. They lost to Ohio State and they lost to Notre Dame. Everybody else they blew out, right? I mean, other than the first
Mm-hmm.
game of the season against FIU, and that was 31-7, and this season against Old Dominion, the first game of the season, they don't do anything but blow everybody out. Now, I do believe this Iowa team is better than the Illinois team that Indiana faced last weekend, so I'm not going to predict it to be 63-10, just because of the injuries and everything else that Illinois had going on. I think Illinois at full strength is still a better team than this Iowa team. That's just me personally. However, I think that eventually Indiana gets away with it. They start kind of running away a little bit more, and it just digs Iowa into a deeper and deeper hole. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful with this prediction, but listen, I have doubted Indiana too many times and not picked them to blow a team out too many times. I'm gonna pick a blowout here, 45-17 Indiana.
You know what's crazy with that pick?
What?
We both still have Indiana covering, and we both still have the over.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how this one is at 48.5 over
Well,
under. I
I
mean,
I think Iowa's defense. I think Iowa. Period. Because
I mean, yeah, but like, it's not like I was against Iowa State. It was right. It was a phenomenal defense in that game, and I'm not saying it wasn't phenomenal against Rutgers, but that was one where they had to adjust. And Rutgers in the second half, they were phenomenal then. But the first half, Rutgers had their number in that one.
yeah,
So I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Rutgers, but if Rutgers can move the ball on you, I have a
that
pretty good feeling that Indiana's going to be able to move the ball on you
yeah
pretty fine. And then
yeah
you add in special teams and Iowa scoring off of that. This isn't gonna be a 48-0 game where it stays under. Iowa's gonna have special teams, and I mean, another thing we didn't mention, Indiana, I'm pretty sure their second string punter is playing in this one. What happened last year against Ohio State? The punter punted it to the wrong side of the field, and that's how Caleb Downs was able to get the punt return. You know, I mean, if your second string punter is out there, you might have a similar issue. Now, I think he's been out there for most of the season so far. I think in the opener, the first string punter got hurt, so it's not like
Mm.
he's new for this one. But still, there's a reason why he wasn't the starter.
Yep.
So we'll see. All right, those are our predictions. Want to say hello to Blue Wolverine. We appreciate you being here, Blue Wolverine. Terry, similar to my prediction, he says 41, not 4. Indiana 41. 13. Thanks, Terry. Steely Matt is reposting the stream. Thank you for that, Steely Matt. And PK is here. Says IU by 4 scores. All right. I don't. Is that what I
That's
had
what
too
you
by
have.
4 scores? Yep. All
You,
right. You and I are together, PK. And then Sunshine Design says the run pass option may just humiliate Iowa or simply overpower Iowa, but Indiana wins if they steamroll Iowa. Look out, Big Ten. Yeah, if my prediction ends up being correct and they steamroll Iowa on the road, you can't just keep saying every team that Iowa faces or that Indiana faces is bad, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't just keep saying like, oh, this team's terrible. Eventually somebody's gonna have to give Indiana credit. So
Yep.
we'll see. We'll
Yep.
see. All right. Next one. UCLA at Northwestern. We got UCLA in this one. Haven't won a game yet this year, 0-3, but they are coming off a bye week. Tim Skipper, new head coach. They fired, or not, they fired their defensive coordinator left. Northwestern does have one win on the season against Western Illinois, but they are 0 for 2 outside of that one. This game's at 3:30 on Saturday. Northwestern currently the favorite on FanDuel by 6.5. The over/under, not looking for a whole lot of offense in this game, Zach. Over under set at 44 and a half. I
Mm.
don't know if I've ever thought a Nico Iamaleava team would ever be set at 44 and a half. Do you think that's saying something? Do you think Vegas knows something that maybe some UCLA players are planning to not play in this game?
I think it's more like UCLA scored 10 against New Mexico. Like
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. I mean they haven't scored more than I think
I
20.
guess the thought is then is Northwestern going to put up 35 if UCLA only puts up 10?
Yeah. Well, and to credit Northwestern, I mean, and it was the way they played Oregon, but they only allowed 34 points to Oregon. I think that would have barely their game would have barely hit the over under, right? Because it was 34-14 in that game.
Sorry, I was muted there. All right. I do think that something we're gonna have to continue to say about the UCLA team time and time again is that this team is more talented than where they're gonna be ranked, right? Or where the record shows. This is still a team with a top 30 talent composite in the
Mm-hmm.
country. So for some people saying like UCLA is not going to win the game the rest of the year, okay, I see what you're saying and I get it. But I do think at some point this UCLA team is going to sneak up on somebody and get them. It's unlikely that it's this one because they are going across the country. I feel like Northwestern's really going to be hungry for a win here, unless they've just given up, which I don't think they have.
Mm-mm.
At least not from anything that I've seen. They still played really hard against Oregon. We're going to watch some film on that here in just a second, but I mean, what are your thoughts here, Zach? I mean, how does UCLA get the win? What needs to happen for that to occur?
Well, I hate to be Captain Obvious, but I think the biggest thing really is how is this team going to respond uh, to the coaching change? You know, they've had a bye week. How are they going to respond to that? Do they kind of rally the troops and galvanize everyone, or is it kind of like ho hum? We're just gonna go and until the season ends and it's a lost season. And I honestly think it could go either way. I'm curious about Nico and his leadership in this, as well as some of the captains and their leadership. So far, I don't think I've seen a single UCLA player actually go into the portal, even though they could have. I know they've lost recruits.
They've lost recruits, but nobody has like said their season's done, and they still have one more game if they're gonna do that.
Yeah. But like that's at least an encouraging sign that no one's like, I'm out now. They don't see this as a lost cause yet, which is saying
Hmm.
something because they lost to New Mexico, they lost to UNLV, they lost to Utah. When we found out Utah is not nearly as good as we thought they might have been. So I, I'm on the lookout to see how UCLA kind of rallies the troops here. And that I don't think that means that they're going to win at Northwestern because this is, on the lake. It's not an easy place to play. And I think to your point, Northwestern is also hungry for a win. They know that this is one of their prime opportunities to get a win and to start building momentum.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a huge aspect of this game. And then, like I said, it doesn't look like Northwestern's given up or anything. And quite frankly, none of these Big Ten teams should give up. If you're in the Big Ten, you have the opportunity for scouts to see you still. You have the opportunity for people to see your skills and everything else. So I do want to take a look at some film really fast because Northwestern has a pretty good running attack. And I think this is going to be one of the keys to the game because UCLA not great at stopping the run. Now maybe the defensive coordinator change will help with that, but we've managed to get some film here at the Big Ten Huddle, and so
Mm.
we're gonna play this one and take a look at it. All right. So obviously Northwestern here. I just want you guys to take a look at the run game. This is Oregon's defensive line. I mean, that's an 8-yard run right there. This was in the first quarter, and we'll talk more about Oregon and some of their slow starts and stuff. But I mean, Northwestern's got some good running backs, and they have a better offensive line for run blocking than I think people give them credit for. And just like we've
Mhm.
said since the beginning of the season, and honestly, if Preston Stone had some better receivers and some more time back there in the pocket, this would be a better offense, simply because of the success they can have with their run game.
Yeah.
But the issues obviously are there with the offense, and we'll have to see if they can rectify it. What do you think about this run game, Zach, and if it can lead Northwestern to victory?
Yeah, I think I mean if you look at the stats, they're certainly elevated by one run at the end of the game. I think it was a 79-yard run. But yeah,
Hmm.
they've got good backs. Porter's out for the year, which stinks, but
Right.
Hyman's good and
Hyman's been
uh
better than I thought he would be this season. Yeah.
yeah, and they have a couple other backs that I think have been impressive. And
Just you look at those receivers out there, nobody's open.
yeah.
And look,
So I
you don't have anybody open out there. You got a few guys going out routes, but this is just straight
Mhm.
man. Yeah, there's nothing there. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Well, and so I think the thing that you have to remember is that Oregon's probably a top 5 team in the country. And they've got a really good secondary and you've got really not so good receivers for Northwestern. How does that translate against a team like UCLA, where I think they probably have a little talent in the back end, but it's not to the extent that Oregon has, or honestly, not even that Utah had, or not Utah. Who else have they played? Like
Who?
I'd be curious if Tulane has similar talent to UCLA or better talent than UCLA. Um,
I would say UCLA probably has better talent than them, but
well, yeah, but coaching wise, rather, like
right, the
have they been
coaching's the
coached
issue. Yeah.
up? Yeah, have they been coached up? Sorry, talent is the wrong word. Um, yeah, I think the thing that I as I've thought about this game is I think UCLA, if they played up to their potential, wins this game and wins it by double digits. I think the problem is that UCLA has a new coach and they have not played up to their potential all year and probably the past 2 years. Whereas Northwestern, they know their pathway to victory includes grit and toughness. And I think if you want my pick, I think Northwestern's going to win this game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I've got 17-10 because I think Northwestern's really going to restrict UCLA offensively. I really like their defensive line. Anto Saka and those boys, I think, are going to wreak havoc. And I think Nico gets a bad rap, but I just think he's going to struggle a bit. Maybe gets a big play to Gilmer or someone else, but I just ultimately think it's low scoring, and I think Northwestern gets one more touchdown.
Yeah, I think Northwestern covers in this one, or UCLA covers in this one, and it stays close. I still think UCLA has the talent. I think Northwestern gets the win, but overall, maybe with a new coach, maybe with some more excitement. I don't know, but I can't see this UCLA team. This is one of their only chances to get a win this season, going out to Northwestern and just completely laying an egg, especially coming off a bye week. I think Northwestern's going to get the win. So I have the final score at 24-21 Northwestern. So I'm taking UCLA to cover, like I said, but it would not surprise me at all if Northwestern wins this game by multiple scores because
Mm-hmm.
for all we know, UCLA could come out just not all that motivated. They were still motivated with Deshaun Foster last year, but with Deshaun Foster not there anymore, Tim Skipper and those guys, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be an
Yep.
interesting game, that's for sure.
Agreed.
So, all right, let's go to Ohio State, Washington. Zach, this was the game that you were most concerned about for a ranked team going on the road this season. It is going to
Mm-hmm.
be at 3:30 on CBS this Saturday. Ohio State is favored by 8.5. Over under currently set at I have it two different spots. I have it 52.5 there on my notes. It was 53.5. Let me double check. It is 52.5. This one opened at 14.5, Zach. So
Mm.
it's gone down a lot. And it's kind of surprising how much it's gone down. I figured it would go down when I saw it at 14.5, but I didn't think it would go down by 6 points there, a whole touchdown gone down. So very interesting. This is going to be Julian Saint's first start on the road, and it's a very tough road environment because Washington is on a 22 home game winning streak. And Zach, I do have a quote about about some more bad media if you want it.
Oh, sure. Let's do it. All about that.
Yeah, the person I heard say it, they said, yeah, and I think that Washington's defense is not as much of a liability as some people think because Julian Sayin has only played well against bad teams. When he faced a team with a pulse, he wasn't all that good, and he looked pretty rattled out there. Of course, he was talking about Texas.
Okay, who's the fool that said that?
Not gonna
What
say who it
what
was.
are they watching? Were they watching
Yeah, I
reruns of
mean,
I Love
obviously,
Lucy or something? Like, what are
obviously
they
he
doing?
just obviously he just read the stats. Like he didn't actually see the game, or he didn't actually think about the game hardly at all. He just saw the
Clearly.
stats. But
It was John
um,
Wilner, wasn't it?
no,
That AP voter who has it in for Ohio State. Get him out of here. I know it
yeah,
wasn't him.
no, not him, not him. But
Okay.
Washington does have Takario Davis as questionable in this one, and then Buda Alcuda, he is out for this one. There was a report earlier on that he's going to be out. Ohio State, no substantial injuries other than their slot nickel Lorenzo Styles, I believe, is still questionable. He went out of the game against Ohio, and I haven't seen anything for sure about if he's playing or not. So we're going to leave that one up to questionable. But Zach, what are your thoughts, matchups, things like that in this game?
Yeah, I think the Takario Davis might be the most important injury in this because I think if Takario Davis can play, Washington wants to play a good mix of man and zone. And if you have Takario Davis out there, you can because he's long, he's lean, he's talented. And Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, I think are maybe the two best receivers in all of college football, at least in the Big Ten. I know there's Ryan Williams and Cam Coleman, all of those guys, but at least in the Big Ten, I think they're the top two receivers in the country, or in the conference. There we go. So having Takario Davis, I think would at least challenge them a bit. I think without Takario Davis, this becomes a bit more problematic for the Huskies. But I will say this, and I know that I said that Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are top two receivers in the Big Ten. Denzel Boston is like might be number three. He's certainly top five. He's a phenomenal receiver. And I think Damon Williams might be the most dynamic quarterback in the conference, and I know that's saying something because you got Bryce Underwood. You obviously have Mendoza. Dynamic is, I don't mean that he's the best, but like able to use his legs, able to use his arm. And
And
then
you got
if
Maeva and Dante Moore as well. I mean, there's a lot of dynamic guys in
there's a
the.
lot, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
Hmm.
And you have Jonah Coleman. So I think this is a show me game for several different parties. I think for Washington, it's a show me game to say, hey, we know you've beat up on some nobodies, but like, how good are you really? But I think for Ohio State defensively, like everybody's raving about them, they haven't played a good offense yet.
Who
And
Ohio State hasn't?
yeah,
Okay.
and we're really going to see what Matt Patricia is made of, I think, in this game. So those are a couple, I think, of just macro level things I'm thinking about. The other thing I'm concerned about is the road environment. And this is the first road start for Julian Sayin. It's the first road start for Brian Hartline as a play caller. How's communication going to work? I think that's a big deal because you're probably going to have to go silent count in the beginning of this game. And so does Hinsman, the center, and him and saying how's their communication, how's Hartline's communication from the booth down, all that stuff. How does Sayin communicate everything to the rest of the team? So I think this is big it's a big game for both these teams, and I think it's a measuring stick for both these teams in different ways.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the cornerback matchup with the wide receivers that you mentioned. Takario Davis and Price Hawk are both 6'4", about 200 pounds, 195, 200 pounds, somewhere in that range. And I mean, that's big for a corner, right?
Yeah.
Especially height wise. To get a corner that's over 6'2" is um, pretty rare nowadays. So to see those two guys, I do have some questions about if they're going to be able to keep up with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and those guys. I mean, Leroy Bryant was their slot corner. He did not have a good game. I believe he led up 2 touchdowns last game against Washington State. They eventually took him out for the true freshman, and it sounded like in the press conference with Jed Fish that maybe Bryant was struggling with some confidence issues after a while. And honestly, if you're a corner or a nickel, that's the last thing you want to be struggling with going into a game with Ohio State that has the best receivers in the nation for what, 7 years running now? However many years Brian
It's a
Hartline's been there.
long time.
They've
Yeah.
they've had the best receivers in the nation. So I am interested primarily because even if Ohio State's receivers are able to get by Takario Davis and Price on, the fly route and everything else, Julian Sayin is taught to underthrow the receivers. Ryan Day talked about this after the Texas game because there was a pass to Carnell Tate that was behind him, and Carnell Tate went up and made a contested catch, and somebody asked, are you concerned about Julian Sain's, deep ball if he's throwing him like that? And he was like, no, that's how we tell him to throw him. He was like, he has the best receivers in the nation. Just give him a chance. It doesn't need to be super clean on a line for them to get to because if it's over them, then they have no chance. You have to give them a chance.
Mhm.
And with Takario Davis and Price how big they are, I don't know if that is the best strategy in this one. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, very physical and big as well. It's not like I'm concerned about those guys, but it is something that we need to be aware of, people watching and Washington fans. I do think that's an edge that maybe people aren't giving too much credit to. But I will say, Zach, the thing that I think is going to go really well for Ohio State in this one, even if Davis and Price do lock down, the tight ends for Ohio State. Did you see what the tight end for Colorado State did against Washington in week 1?
Forget it was I mean, he did some pretty big damage to him.
Yeah, he had 6 receptions for 79 yards and 1 touchdown. Nobody else had more than 20. No, nobody else had more than 30 yards in that game.
Mhm.
They had one receiver, their slot wide receiver, again against Leroy Bryant that went had 6 receptions on or 4 receptions on 6 targets. So you know with Tacario Davis and Price Hawk, I'm not expecting huge games from Jeremiah Smith at Cornell State. Obviously, they could still have them, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Brian Hartline starts peppering, Brandon Ennis in the slot, which he's not, had a great year so far this year. Very good blocker, but he's not had the production. Or going after Max Clare. What's their backup tight end? Thurman.
Kasmerick,
Well,
Thurman.
Kazmarek, yeah, he's more of a blocker, but I guess he did catch a touchdown the other day, so it'll be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Cameron's asks, do you guys believe that Washington's D line will be able to speed up Julian Sain's internal clock? I don't. If we can't get pressured by Texas, I don't know how Washington does it. I mean, maybe we'll see, but I'm thinking back to that Ohio game when Julian Sain got pressured, and instead of just taking the sack, he threw it
Yeah.
into coverage and got an interception, right? So, do they have to get pressure? Can they just make him feel like he's pressured? Like this is the aspect of going on the road that I think is a little bit more interesting to think about and talk about, especially when it comes to Julian Sain and how young he is. I mean, he's only a redshirt freshman. So, and Washington's defensive line, they've been very good this
Mhm.
season. You go look at the numbers; they've got a lot of pressures. Now, they haven't faced the best competition in the nation: Washington State, Colorado State, and UC Davis. But I don't typically hold that against teams. If you're able to produce against teams, that's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing just to point out, and you said this about Ohio, like Ohio's not great defensively. And I think something that's a concern is it was against Ohio that Ohio State had all these red zone issues. Now, I think part of that was by design in the sense of trying to work on different play calls and like I think they could have run it 4 straight times and scored a touchdown each time. Like I think they could have done that if they wanted to. But it's still a question mark of what are they going to look like when you have to have it on 3rd and goal. Like, how do they look in the red zone? Was the Ohio game an aberration, or is it something that they might actually have a problem with? We don't know because they've really only they've played Grambling and then they had one opportunity against Texas.
I feel like you're going to see the Lincoln Keenholz package in this game.
Oh,
I
as
think
long
this
as
is the game where it comes out.
as long as Lincoln Keenholz doesn't twist his ankle like Devin Brown did a couple years ago.
Well, yeah, as long as that doesn't happen, yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I know. They showed it a little bit. I think they had one play with it in that
Mhm.
Ohio game, and I think that was them kind of like getting ready for it a little bit, maybe going to it early because of the red zone struggles. But yeah, I think you're going to see Lincoln Keenholz utilized in this game. Also,
Mhm.
could be time to give Julian Sayin a break from being on the field and everything going on. So we'll see, but I would not be surprised at all if in the red zone you see Lincoln Keenholz for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 or more snaps in
Yeah.
this one. So
Going back to your point real quick about the tight end, Alakuda being out is a big deal in that regard. And so you have one of your top linebackers out, and now you've got to face at least a very deep tight end room for Ohio State. That is a struggle. I think I also saw that the number 2 wide receiver for Washington is also out in this game. Is that
okay, I missed
it?
that one. But I mean, that's kind of the thing, though, right? Is like they they have secondary receivers, but they don't really get the ball all that much. If
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, I don't think another receiver on this team has any more than 3 receptions on the year. It's
Hmm.
basically Boston and Jonah Coleman that Damon Williams throws to. I mean, obviously it throws to other people,
Yeah.
but I mean, David Greenshield, appreciate you being here again, David Greenshield. He says Boston is dangerous receiver for Washington. No relation to David Boston. Yeah, no relation there. Denzel Ward, is he related? No, I'm just kidding. Not first names. Uh, there's so many
Oh
Denzels
dear.
that have come through Ohio State. It's funny. But I do think this is an interesting talking point, and then we can get to our predictions. Because what is Matt Patricia known for, right? What was he known for with the Patriots? What was Bill Belichick known for? What was the defense they're known for? Take away like their most dangerous option, take away their best player. What happens when the team has 3 best players, right? Like, are you
Mhm.
going to be able to take away Damon Williams, Denzel Boston, and Jonah Coleman? I think of all 3 of those, you probably need to start with Jonah Coleman to make sure you take care of him. But if you start focusing too much on Boston, they're going to go to Coleman. You start focusing too much on Coleman, they might, Damon Williams might go crazy. The linebackers for Ohio State are going to be really tested in this one
Yeah.
because they're going to have to, cover Jonah Coleman and at the same time also keep contain on Damon Williams. Arch Manning had success running against Ohio State. Honestly, I think Texas probably would have been in that game if they ran Arch Manning more, but they
Mm-hmm.
decided not to. We'll see if Washington's willing to do it. If it doesn't work out well at the beginning of the game, it might be something to do later on. But I find it hard to believe the Washington's offense is not going to work out. They've scored on 21 straight drives this since
Yeah.
halftime of the Colorado State game. So
Mm,
it's going to be a really really big test for Matt Patricia and the Ohio State defense.
yeah. One fun fact: the one of the receivers opposite Denzel Boston, Amari Evans, former Penn State receiver. So,
There you go.
which there's a reason why he transferred out. He has one catch for 59 yards and a touchdown. So
Well, but you've seen the one Keandre Lambert Smith over at Auburn. He was leading the nation in receiving yards at one point. Did you see that?
what?
Yeah, I think it was last week.
Mm.
The Penn State guy sent it to me. He was going through it about the wide receivers.
Oh
There he
yeah.
is. Appreciate you being here, Penn State guy. Is he still leading the nation, Penn State guy? I'm curious. I know you probably keep up with that. I haven't looked it up lately.
Wait, no, not Keandre Lambert Smith. Trey Wallace. Harrison
Oh,
Wallace.
Harrison Wallace. Yes, sorry.
I was gonna say, wait, what?
Yeah, Harrison Wallace. Sorry. A lot of transfer wide receivers. I
Yeah.
forget which one.
We yes. He does it. He has 16 catches for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he said didn't have a big game last week, so
Yeah.
not leading as much. All right, appreciate it, Penn State guy. All right, predictions here, Zach. I'll go first. I think this one's going to be very close for the first half. Wouldn't be surprised at all if it's a one score game, maybe even tied. Washington could be leading at the end of the first half. For all we know, this is a very serious game, and Ohio State fans need to take it seriously. And I'm going to pick Ohio State to win this one by multiple scores and cover, but I don't think it's going to happen easy. And I think if that happens, it's probably going to happen late in the game. This isn't like a blowout pick or anything like that. This is Ohio State eventually pulls away later on into the game. And, Washington looks very respectable throughout it. Honestly, if Washington makes it a closer game than what I predicted is, like if the score is closer than that, Washington should probably get ranked just for giving Ohio State a really good game. We saw it happen with Texas, with Alabama just a few years ago. So it's not something the AP poll won't do. But my prediction is 41-24. Ohio State. Would not be surprised at all if Washington gets into the 30s, if it's like 41-31, 41-34, something like that. I just really believe in this Ohio State offense. I have some questions about the Washington defense, but I think this Washington offense is going to give them a really hard time. Zach, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if Julian Sayin had more experience, I would be right there with you in terms of Ohio State like scoring more. I am a little concerned about him on the road for the first start. I'm concerned about the offensive line having to go to a silent count. And this has nothing to do with poise. I think the guy who said he's, you know, struggled under pressure, guy can kick rocks. I think he's Joe Cool back there, but at the same time, there is something about having to just adjust things where there is probably going to be more penalties. You're probably going to see more false starts, maybe a couple of delay games, and maybe even a miscommunication where there's an sorry, I have an alarm going off. Where an interception is, just off a carom or something. So I just think there's a lot of weird things that can happen on the road in an environment like this. And then you combine the fact that Washington is actually a good team. I I'm not picking it up. I was very close to picking an upset. I don't think it's going to be upset, but I think it's going to be pretty close. And I think the thing that actually really concerns me is if this gets into the fourth quarter, this is the fourth quarter is when Washington has actually been its best. Now, part of that's they're wearing teams down, but I just am a little concerned if this game gets to the fourth quarter, what happens? Ultimately, I think Ohio State has too much talent. I think they have too many dudes. I think the tight end game is going to be uh, a mismatch, and I think the linebackers are uniquely equipped to deal with Damon Williams. So I've got 34-28 Ohio State. I have Washington covering. It's an over, but I think Ohio State does win.
Yeah, I like what you said there about the linebackers, and they're well equipped for this, and being able to take care of Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman. But it won't be an easy task by any means. I mean, that duo together is very difficult, and Washington needs all the respect in the world from Ohio State fans, because this is a legit team, and this is a legit environment. And if Ohio State walks out of this one losing, I would not be shocked at all. I would not be surprised at all. So I know I didn't pick it, but it would not surprise me at all. So, all right, Zach, let's do our SEC upset picks really fast. The SEC, not a lot of upset opportunities. You got Vanderbilt playing, what is it, Utah State or something like that. So Missouri is playing UMass, I think it is. I think you could pick LSU to upset Ole Miss. Ole Miss is at home and they're like a 1.5 point favorite, but I typically try to stay away from those because I think those are kind of cheating upset picks. So, but a lot of single digit odds here. Alabama, Georgia is another one. I'm going to go with Kentucky upsetting South Carolina in this one. I've not been impressed with South Carolina this season, and I feel like Kentucky is kind of on that downward slope where everybody's just kind of like, yeah, they're not a legit team anymore. And at some point, if Mark Stoops wants to prove that he is the coach that everybody thinks he is, he's going to have to, get a big win. And I don't know if South Carolina is the biggest win, but I do think it is a beatable team that
Yep.
Kentucky could go on the road and get this win here. So South Carolina is favored by 6.5. I'm going to pick Kentucky to get the upset over.
Yeah, they went toe to toe with Ole Miss, so I think that's a good pick. I saw that you had picked that, and I was like, that actually probably would have been mine. And for the interest of picking a different game, I went for one that's I'm far less confident in. But I have not been in on A&M. I'm not really in on Auburn either, but I'm going to pick Auburn over A&M. So no analysis on that. Just we're going Auburn over A&M.
There you go. There you go. Cameron asked, are you guys taking Arkansas? I forget who is
No,
Arkansas.
Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? I took Arkansas against Ole Miss, and they almost produced. I thought with Ole Miss playing their second string quarterback most likely in that one that there would be good opportunity there. But then, Trinidad Chambles, I think is his name. He's proved to just be outstanding. So, not exactly what I thought would happen. But I was close to picking this one. This was another one where it was just like so close that I didn't really feel like I could pick it, right? It's kind of like a cop out to pick an upset when the game is within like 3 or 4 points of each other. So, yeah, I went with Kentucky, South Carolina, but if I could pick any of these ones and not go with that kind of rule, Arkansas and Notre Dame or LSU over Ole Miss would have been probably my pick. So, I mean, Arkansas is at home. It's possible here.
Mm-hmm. To knock Notre Dame out for real.
Yeah. I mean, are we really confident that Chris Ash can stop Taylor Green? I'm not.
We should just move on. Just move on.
All right. Hey, that's going to end the first part of this episode. If you're listening on podcast, we're going to end the episode here. If you're listening on YouTube, stick around. Please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. We appreciate you being here. We're going to take a moment really fast and start the next episode for the podcast. So stick around. We'll be right back. Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we are brought to you by FanDuel. We are talking every single Big Ten team here on the Big Ten Huddle. Not as many games this week, but it is a huge week with a lot of huge matchups. Illinois, USC. We just talked about Ohio State, Washington last week, in Indiana, Iowa. We're talking Illinois, USC in this episode. We're talking Oregon, Penn State. Two huge matchups that have honestly playoff implications for both of them. If either team loses in the Illinois USC one, that could knock Illinois out of the playoffs, and it could really hinder USC from getting into the playoffs with the lack of respect they're getting in the rankings right now, which is problematic. They have two Power 4 wins, two Big Ten wins, and they're still ranked outside of the top 20. So USC needs this one, Illinois needs this one, and we'll talk through it all. Should be a great time, and I know the guy with me is going to have a great time as well. He's Zach Guggenheim. Zach, how you doing?
I'm excited, a little nervous about this one because we're this might be our most divisive podcast we've had in a while.
Yeah, we got some different picks here. We're gonna see each and every one. Not only have we gone back and forth on who covers, but we have not agreed on a single winner this entire three games we're gonna talk here. We're gonna talk USC at Illinois, Rutgers at Minnesota, and Oregon at Penn State, and you're gonna hear a reason why every single one of these six teams can win because we're all picking different ones.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. Yep. Well, let's go ahead and let's just get straight into it. Okay. We have USC at Illinois. Illinois obviously coming off the difficult game against Indiana. Illinois fans, I won't remind you too much of that, but we are going to have to reference it a little bit. But before we do that, let's talk. It is big noon kickoff for at 12 p.m. on Fox. USC is favored on the road. They are favored by 6.5 in this one. Over under is set at 59.5. This game has major implications of what needs to happen with Illinois possibly getting knocked out of the playoffs. I mean, if they win the rest of their games, they still could make it. But with the injuries and stuff like that going on for Illinois, you would really rather not have that risk be taken right now. So Illinois really needs this one. USC, for respect and everything else, they really need this one as well. It's going to be a very, very interesting game. Zach, I do have more bad media on this one. You ready for this?
Gosh, yeah, sure.
So obviously Indiana threw the ball all over Illinois. And the quote I heard from somebody, now to their credit, this was like in passing. They were not like covering this game. They were just kind of like, oh yeah, did you see what happened with Indiana, Illinois? And the guy said, oh yeah, I saw Fernando Mendoza became the Heisman odds leader in this after this game. If an Indiana quarterback becomes the Heisman odds leader on you, you need to seriously consider taking out all of your starters and starting all of your backups after that game. The game where Illinois had 6 defensive backs go out for either targeting or injury. He said Illinois needs to seriously consider starting their second string players over their starters next game. Yeah.
Hey.
There's a reason why you come to the Big Ten Huddle for Big Ten coverage. Let's just say that.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow. Wow.
All right. We're going to talk about this game. Jacoby Lane and Elijah Page. So obviously Jacoby Lane, star wide receiver for them, excellent wide receiver. He was out last game, and then Elijah Page, he left the Michigan State game. I believe it was in the second quarter with an injury. Their status is still up in the air. There was a report out earlier that said they would have more news on that later today, but I've not seen any of that news. If anybody else has, please do let us know in the chat. But we'll see what happens with those two. If those two are out, that really is a big deal for USC in this one. But Illinois topples over the 2 players that USC has that could be out, with multiple players that could be out for them. Xavier Scott, he will miss most of the season. Brett Bielema said with a foot and ankle surgery happening on Wednesday. Matthew Bailey is in concussion protocol. He is cleared for later in the week, so he could possibly play against USC. But even then, when you're cleared for later in the week, you're probably not going to play the whole game. We'll see what happens. Caleb Patterson, one of their starting cornerbacks, his X-ray was negative, so he's expected to come back to practice, which is good news. Torrey Cox Jr., his MRIs were negative with after his stomach injury. He's expected to be back, which is great news. And then Justin Boeck, Aiden Lawfrey, and Hank Beatty are all cleared to practice, but they are sore, so they should all be back. Justin Boeck was available moving forward after the Indiana game. He was cleared but not used, but
Mhm.
he is cleared moving forward. So the suspicion is that he should play in this game against USC, even though he was cleared for last game. He didn't play. He should play in this one. So, Zach, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of concern with all the injuries, right? For Illinois. I I want to go back. So if you're listening on podcasts, the previous episode, I referenced a quote from Todd McShay. For those of you who are watching, I mentioned it with our Indiana breakdown against Iowa. It's something that Todd McShay said that really caught my attention was the idea that Indiana plays with extreme efficiency. And something I was just thinking through and wrestling with as I heard him say that was, you go back to a year ago when Indiana, played, you know, was blowing everybody out. I think a lot of people saw the scores and they were like, "Oh, they're just beating bad teams." And it's like the records weren't great, right? But just look at Nebraska for example. Nebraska lost 56-7 against Indiana last year. The week before, they played Ohio State, or no, the week after they played Ohio State. Sorry. They went to Columbus and they lost by 4 and probably should have won that game, if we're being honest. Now, Ohio State wasn't playing well. They were replacing their left tackle, Josh Simmons. Okay, that matters. But the reality is they went from getting getting their doors blown off by Indiana and then almost beating Ohio State. Why did that happen? Well, it's because Indiana, their system, if you can't match it, they'll just crush you. It's not necessarily an indication that you cannot play with other teams that have a more of a talent level or a higher talent level. It means that you just better not be worse than Indiana, because if you are, Indiana is going to make you pay. And so I think a lot of people, after this past week are like, well, Illinois is terrible. They stink. One group who I really enjoy, I will not name them, I really disagreed with them because they were saying, how dare you rank Illinois after what happened and not rank Auburn? Because of course, SEC bias. I get it. Like Oklahoma, you could make the case that they were closer with Oklahoma, whatever. I don't care. I think it matters to realize that just because you get blown out by a team doesn't mean that that's who you are. It was one result. And I think Illinois has a chance to show that maybe they're a little bit better than we think. They just ran into a buzzsaw on Saturday night.
Yeah, and a buzzsaw that deserves all the credit. I think that's the hardest part with this is the moment you start referencing like, oh, Illinois is not all that bad, then you have people saying, oh, so Indiana is not all that good. It's like, no, that's not, that should not be the conclusion from this. Illinois obviously had a bad game. They had multiple players out in it, and they did not fix their offensive line issues. One of those two things is their fault, and they do need to have, criticism for that. However, I would love to see any team lose 6 of their defensive backs who play regularly, go up against Indiana, and not have Indiana throw all over them. Like, you have to have some serious depth in order for that to happen. Again,
Yep.
no discredit to Indiana. Indiana's a fantastic team. I purposely did not mention this in the recap because I knew it would sound like I'm not giving Indiana their credit. We are giving Indiana their credit. But we also need to recognize that when you lose most of your secondary all in one game for whatever reason, targeting, injury, whatever it is, it's really, really difficult to recover when you're playing a
Yep.
tier one team. And that's
Yep.
what Indiana is. They're a tier one
Yeah.
team.
Well, and to your point, think of the momentum, right? Indiana is beating you all over the field, and then you have injury after injury after injury after targeting,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in their place.
Mm-hmm.
So again, they ran into a buzzsaw. You almost have to throw the result out for
Yeah.
Illinois. The
Uh,
question is, how do they respond?
right. Right. And that's the most important part. Cameron brings up a really interesting thing, and this is one thing I want to watch the film on with Indiana because I think it's really relevant. He says, my biggest worry with Illinois is their own line in this game. The secondary is not. And I was encouraged by watching the film to figure out this is not all the O line right now that is going on with Illinois. There are other issues at play. Now, you can say more issues at play is a bad thing, and I guess that could be the case, but it is encouraging for the offensive line to know that this is not all on them. There is other stuff at play here. There are other issues as well that if these get corrected, and I do think these are all correctable things that could help out. So I'm gonna bring this up and we'll watch this really fast. All right. So this is gonna be a sack, and this is totally on the O line. Okay, this is on J.C. Davis, number 74. This is totally on him. I mean, just gets speed rushed, bad footwork, bad contain everything. I mean, just not great. So you go back and watch it again. He's on the outside here. The feet just aren't moving fast enough. You're not good. That's totally on the O line, and that's something that needs to be brought up there. This one, let me bring it to. And if you're listening on podcast, I apologize. And Luke Altmaier sees it. This wide receiver didn't run behind the line of scrimmage. You can't block downfield when you've crossed the line of scrimmage for a screen. So he's over the line of scrimmage right there, the 45-yard line. Luke Altmaier sees it, and he's like, I don't have anybody to throw to. He's blocking. He's getting ready to engage that block there. And since they're blocking over here, he has no other choice. Well, crap, it's zone coverage. He's got three dudes waiting over here for him. So Luke Altmaier does the best he can, and unfortunately, it looks really bad. It looks like a sack because the guy worked off the right tackle there, but the right tackle wasn't blocking for Luke Altmaier to run. He was blocking for Luke Altmaier to have enough time to throw a screen pass,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately, it didn't work out. So again, it's not all on the offensive line, but that's definitely something that needs to be repaired and fixed. There's one more I want to get at here. And all right. So this one, Duke showing pressure like they were doing all game, and this happened all the time. And it was difficult for the Illinois offensive line to know who's coming and who's not. It didn't look like the offensive line knew the play here, right? Luke Altmaier is on a rollout. He's going to the side, and you have the right tackle getting depth and all offensive line issues. There's other issues at play here as well. But, like I said, you could also look at that and say, well, that's not good either. Neither's
Mm-hmm.
great. But still, that's something I noticed and I wanted to bring up. What are your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think your point about it's all correctable. It's helpful to remember that they brought in a lot of new pieces, particularly at receiver. Right? They needed to
Yeah.
replace Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. They brought in some, I think, very talented guys. But I think there is a sense of like, okay, how much do you guys know the playbook? And knowing, okay, this on this play, I got to be behind. I do think though that the offensive line, it's not all on them, but a lot of it is, and they have to correct what the things that they have to correct how they're playing. It feels like in some ways they've regressed from a year ago, which is wild because they all played together a year ago. You would expect with that continuity there'd be improvement.
They did give up a number of sacks a year ago. The idea
Yes.
just was that they would continue to improve, right?
Improve. Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and continue to build more chemistry together. But
Mhm. Which I think it's a good reminder to us. And I think we're finding this out with Clemson too. Like just because you have a lot of returning production does not necessarily mean you're going to be that much better.
right, and that's honestly one of the things that I think we need to learn, and it'll come up later on in a later prediction that I have. But that's something that needs to be thought through, is that not every single team who brings back players, is Ohio State and Michigan, right? Teams can bring back players, but that doesn't mean they're going to continue to develop. That doesn't mean they're going to automatically turn into better NFL players. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. So
Yep.
yeah. All right, Zach. Anything else on this? We haven't really talked to USC. We talked to pretty much
Yeah,
Illinois this entire
yeah.
time.
I think everybody knows we're big USC, like we're USC fans,
Oh yeah, we're
right?
USC believers for sure.
Yeah. I will say this. They have not left the West Coast. It's a 9 a.m. game Pacific time. And there's not many coaches that I don't trust more than Lincoln Riley, particularly against Big Ten caliber opponents. I think the coaching matchup to me is really interesting because I think Brett Bielema is one of the best coaches in the conference. And I think Lincoln Riley, a lot of people love Lincoln Riley, but he has been honestly subpar in the move to the Big Ten. And so I have questions about how is he going to navigate. I don't think it's a question. I think this game was in LA. I think I think USC wins by 3 scores. But it's not. And I don't love the coaching matchup for USC, if I'm quite honest. And if Jacoby Lane's out, yes, they have a lot of playmakers, but I like Brett Bielema to get his boys ready after a blowout loss.
For them to respond well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I think Brett Bielema knows how to motivate his guys in any
Hmm.
situation.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that needs to be considered here for USC is just how well they've done at getting after the quarterback and putting pressure on the quarterback and getting
Yep.
sacks this season as well. Right now, they lead the nation with the most sacks per game. Um, this USC defense is nasty. The secondary has some leakiness to them, and you can throw on them. But this defensive line did a better job of stopping the run against Michigan State. Jakeem Stewart stood out and looked
Mhm.
much better in this one. But the other piece of this, what makes me the most worried, is in that Duke game, what did Illinois capitalize on? The turnovers and stuff like that from
Yep.
Duke. And right now, I mean, it's not like the worst, but it's not Indiana for sure. Indiana had one turnover on the season, and they didn't get penalized very much. USC does get penalized quite a bit.
Yep.
8.3 penalties per game. They have 3 giveaways on the season, but they do have 7 takeaways. So there is the opportunity to possibly get takeaways, even if you have giveaways. But and I'm thinking back to the Michigan State game when they had the fumble, right? They had Michigan
Mhm.
State pretty much dead to rights in that. I think it was 31-17. And Michigan State was long out of the game, and they fumble. They give Michigan State good field position, and Michigan State scores. Now, thankfully, they were able to score after that and move on, and it wasn't a big deal. Michigan State scored one more touchdown, but
Mhm.
USC scored 2 more, so it wasn't a big deal. But still, that's the type of stuff that if you do that against this Illinois team with Brett Bielema, the way he coaches and opportunistic he is, you're not going to live that down as much
Yep.
as you could possibly against the Michigan State or somebody like that, especially when they're on the road. It's probably a good amount of that considering they were on the road too.
Yeah.
So the discipline needs to be something that USC really takes seriously in this one. They are good with what they do and how they do it and everything. But yeah. Anyway, Zach, you got anything
Yeah.
else?
Well, I was going to say to your point about penalties, they are averaging 8.25 penalties a game for 80.75 yards per game.
Yeah, it's a
Like
lot.
that is not good. And if you are shooting yourself in the foot like that, that gives a team like Illinois a lot of opportunity to come and steal one from you. And again, it's in their house. It's an early kick. What have we seen, at least all of last year? Teams that have to go across the country to play it doesn't matter how much more talented you might be. It's the great equalizer to have to travel like that. And so
Hmm.
now maybe teams figure it out in year two, but that's a massive concern for me if I'm a Trojans fan.
Yeah. I will say Michigan State did not get a single penalty or a conversion on third down by penalty. So, as much as we are kind of giving USC crap here for some of their penalties, it's not like those penalties have come at, terrible times, at
Mhm.
least against Michigan State. I could look up the other games
Yeah.
if I needed to,
Well,
but
LFG, he does say, like USC committed a special teams penalty that kept the Sparty drive alive, and it jumped off. It jump started MSU's comeback.
yeah. Well, and they had the
So
fumble too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. But I do think it's something that needs to be referenced and talked about with USC. Really good team. Obviously, Jaden Maava is fantastic. He's one of the best, quarterbacks in the country. I feel like if I had more time and I had the right film, I would do some film on Jaden Maava just to show how good he is. But
he
and
is
honestly,
so good.
that's why I'm picking USC to win this game. I know it's on the road. I know that it's going to be a do or die game for USC, but just everything I look at from this game, the offensive line for Illinois, the wide receivers, the offense for USC. Illinois has not been great at stopping the run. We didn't even mention that. And Wayman Jordan, Eli Sanders, they have a really, really good duo between those two
Yep.
guys right now that they can utilize in different ways. Eli Sanders hits that hole hard, and I think that he's a really good runner. I think Wayman Jordan, we've been high on him since the beginning, and he's been really good this season. And this offensive line is blocking better. Now, maybe with Elijah Page out, well, things could be different. But I'm a big believer in this USC team. And unfortunately, with Illinois, with all the injuries and losing Xavier Scott, and I know they're going to get those guys back, but they're not going to be practicing until later in the week. I'm picking USC to win this one. Like I said, 38-24.
Yep. I think under ideal circumstances, I would pick USC. I there's just and this is a feel pick. I'll be honest. Like I think you break down the X's and O's, and you're like USC should win this. I just don't believe in Lincoln Riley. And I think you're going on the road to a wounded Brett Bielema who is going to want to unleash the hounds. And I think it's going to be a close game. I would not be surprised if USC leads in the third quarter. Um, but I just think Illinois wins. I've got 28-27 Illinois. I just think Bielema is going to pull his coaching magic. And I think they get a game-winning touchdown. I think Luke Altmaier responds in a big way. Big day out of the receivers against that secondary for the Trojans, and I think there's just too many penalties and too many turnovers for USC that Illinois capitalizes on.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, if this gets to a close game in the fourth quarter, I'll be there with you, but I don't know if it's going to
Yep.
be a close game in the third or fourth quarter.
Yep.
That's hard. That's hard.
No, and
So,
I again that it's a feel. I'm not saying I think X's and O's. You're on it, but
hmm uh,
I'm going with my gut on this.
Illini Bubba says Illinois 33, USC 24, and Illini Bubba gets a victory selfie in the stands with Mr. Guys. Let's go. Yeah, the Mr. Guys, the $100 million donor for Illinois. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. That's huge for Illinois. Go get that selfie, Illini Bubba. Love
Yeah.
it. All right, let's look at the next game. Here we have Rutgers at Minnesota, noon on Saturday. Big Ten Network. Minnesota favored in this one by 5.5. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised to see it be that big, but obviously the odds are really in favor of Minnesota. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Minnesota's at home, and the odds do like Minnesota. So, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to Minnesota at all. But the over under on this one is 51.5. Bit of a sneaky rivalry here, Zach. You got Kirk
Yep.
Soraka and Athan Kaliakmanis, former Minnesota coach and player, now over there with Rutgers. And you ready for some more bad media, Zach?
Oh dear. What
I heard
happened now?
I heard somebody say again, this was another just like in passing, like they weren't like breaking down the game, but somebody mentioned the score, and the guy said, "Wait, what? Iowa scored 38 points versus a Greg Schiano defense? I'm a believer in Iowa this season." And
No, no. Watch football.
which it's not bad to be a believer in Iowa. That's not what I'm getting at, but to use the reasoning of, "Oh, it was against a Greg Schiano defense." This is not a Greg Schiano defense this season. Sorry to say.
Hmm.
So anyway, Zach, you can continue on with the with the preview now.
Yeah, I am curious to see how Minnesota responds. They lost to Cal, who I don't know what happened to Cal because they had that big win against Minnesota and then they just got drubbed by San Diego State. So I'm curious to see how PJ Fleck responds here. They are at home. They've had a bye week to kind of lick their wounds. Coy Parich, how does he respond after this past week?
Yeah, he did not have a good game.
Yeah, we love Coy. We think he's one of the best safeties in the country, but he had a rough go of it.
Yeah.
How does Drake Lindsay respond as he comes back home? Whereas Rutgers has got to be kicking themselves because I think they know they had a chance to win and beat Iowa last week.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've got to go on the road. You've got all the storylines with Kurt Soraka, Ethan Kaliak-Man is coming back to Minnesota. I think the thing that I am struggling with, if I'm honest, JR, I feel like I still don't know what I believe about Minnesota. Cause like I was heavy on Minnesota and then they lost to Cal and it was like, even with Coy Parich having the game that he had, I'm like, I'm not so sure they don't lose anyway with the way that they were playing against that Cal team.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Minnesota played a pretty good game for most of it. They did a good job stopping the run, and Sagapolatelli had a hard time at times. He also just made some really good throws. He has a really good arm. I mean, he's obviously going to be an NFL quarterback at some point if he can continues to develop the right way. But once they started giving up the run and their offense wasn't really able to do anything, and then when I think it was the final touchdown or the second final touchdown of the game, when the Cal tight end got it. I mean, five different people touched him, and he still
Mm-hmm.
scored a touchdown. To me, that was the point when I saw it. I was like, "Yeah, this is over." Now, I don't know if it's
Yeah.
over for Minnesota the rest of the season. I'm not going to judge the rest of the season on one play,
Right.
but that one play in that game, yikes,
Yeah.
that was not good. John adds to the list here. We appreciate it, John. He says, and Rob Smith, the terrible DC who formerly coached at Minnesota. Yeah, I forgot he was at Minnesota. Thank you for including that there, John. More on the Rutgers coaching staff here in a minute, but Zach, I mean, Cal loses to San Diego State. Don't even score a point. Does
Yep.
that give you more concern about this Minnesota team? Does that say anything about them? Because we say it says something about LSU when Clemson goes 1-3, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna be consistent here, it's not a great look for Minnesota.
No, and I think that's why I'm like I mean early on I was like I think I see pieces of Minnesota where I'm like they might be a top half of the Big Ten caliber team, but then I think you see what happened against Cal. Again, they went across the country, so there is some I don't want to say excuse making, but explanation into hey maybe your body clock didn't adjust right. They played that game what at 10 p.m. Eastern or 11 o'clock Eastern, something like that. So I think there is, I don't want to say excuses, but there are explanations. But it is alarming at the very least. It's alarming to see the team that beat Minnesota just get bushwhacked by by San Diego State.
They got beat worse by San Diego State than UCLA did by New Mexico.
Oof,
Yeah,
oof.
not good. Um, All right, so we'll get back to Rutgers here in just a second. I do want to reference Minnesota does right now have the number one defense in the nation, and Minnesota fans, I think we can all agree here that statistic is just a little bit deceiving because of the Northwestern State game, and don't get me wrong, the Buffalo game was really good, but it is a little bit deceiving when you have a Northwestern State game in there and you have only played 3 games, because I think that stat came from total defense, and that's what Greg Schiano mentioned in his presser. I want to show a little bit of some stuff from Minnesota in this Cal game because there was some stuff that really shows how good the team is, but then there's also some stuff in there that's like this provides some concern as well. So we'll check it out here. This is on second down, 4 to go. I want you to look and watch the trigger from John Nestor right here. He's number 17 here at the bottom of the screen. They do a great job of triggering on plays like this and just getting into the backfield. John Nestor, chief among them. Kerry Brown does a good job as well. You can see it from the back angle here. I mean, a lot of guys in their defense do a good job with this. We'll see this here in just a moment from a linebacker, Matt Kingsbury, who honestly I think this is another one with him right there. I mean, I know it's a blitz, but for him to just completely blow up that running back, just force Segapatelli to the other side of the pocket where the rest of the defensive line, they tried to go away from the edges and Anthony Smith and these guys for the entire game, but when you're coming in that hot, the running back stands no chance. And honestly, Matt Kingsbury probably needs to play more from what I've seen from him. He's been really, really good this season. I think he's only got like 50 snaps, though. I'm not
Mm.
sure if there's an injury or anything, but I think he needs to play more. But here is the issue because I do think we need to also reference that there are some downsides to it as well. So, bunch formation up here at the top. You see 3 guys from Minnesota on that side as well. And just you can tell they think it's a screen. 3 guys right there, all guarding the screen. You're left with Coy Parrish back there behind everybody else, and the pass goes up. Coy Parrish can't make the play, and he goes down to the 1 yard line. So I mean, I like some people are gonna Coy Parrish is gonna get crap for that in the PFF stats, right? I don't know if that's all on Coy Parrish. He was kind of out there by himself, but he did undercut it too much and kind of completely miss it there. You can see it again. He completely goes under it, or he completely misses the receiver when the receiver goes high. I guess I said he went under. He went behind him, misses the grab. Yeah, and that's tough. But
Mm.
that's an aspect of Minnesota's defense that can make them so good, but at the same time can make them, a big issue as well. And I didn't see the tape from Kerry Brown when he let up that long pass. Oh, I did see that one. He tripped on that one, and that's why that long pass happened. So,
Mm.
Zach, any thoughts from that tape?
No, I mean, I think it just confirmed what you were saying before.
Yeah, really aggressive defense. They trigger, and that kind of stuff is great, but it can be a detriment at times, especially there.
Well, and that is, I think, a concern, especially when we just spent a ton of time praising the improvement of Kaliak Manis and his receivers. And I've not done a deep dive into Cal's receivers. But I will make an argument that without having seen Cal's receivers, I think Rutgers receivers are probably better. I think their receiving room again is legit, and I think Ian Strong is a legit NFL guy. And I'm curious, how does Minnesota match up with this passing attack?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big thing. And how is Coy Parrish going to play? Kerry Brown, John Nestor's been good this season, but how does he play as well? And then how does the Rutgers defense do too?
Mhm.
John just mentioned Rob Smith and kind of the issue that he's been. Mike Brenda, Broadbent did a really good piece on this on the Knights Report website. Mike, good friend of the show, he's been on here before. We appreciate him, and he does awesome analysis over there at the Knights Report. So go check them out. But he did a piece on this, and it is a very, you know, it's a coaching staff that's not been there very long on the defensive side of the ball, and that makes
Yeah.
it even more difficult for Rutgers. And I don't think it's all the players. I think some people look at it as the players, but you're also getting some strange play calls in this situation as well. They're running stunts and I wouldn't say obvious run situations, but situations where it does seem like a run is likely and one guy is stunting but the other isn't, and it just completely leaves
Yeah.
holes open for the offense to get their running game through. So more is contributing to this bad Rutgers defense than just, the players aren't getting enough push on the defensive line and or the offensive line and stuff like that right now. There's more
Mhm.
going on. So,
Yep.
Zach, I'm curious your prediction on the game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually think I know it's at Minnesota, but I really like Rutgers passing attack in this. And I think Minnesota, this is going to feel weird, but I wonder if Minnesota has played an offense like Rutgers yet. So I'm taking Rutgers 31-24. I think Minnesota will score. I think they'll move the ball, but I just like Manis and his receivers to be just the deciding factor in this. And I think one thing that matters a lot is you talked about the triggering for Minnesota, but that defensive line and that front seven, I don't think is as good as Iowa's. And that's what I think really slowed down Rutgers offense in the second half. I don't know if they're going to be able to disrupt the passing attack quite like Iowa did.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Um, I'm gonna take I'm gonna
Second
take Minnesota
guessing.
in this one.
You
No,
were
I was
second
I was second
guessing.
guessing for a second. I'm gonna take Minnesota in this one, and one of the big reasons is what I pointed out there on tape. Um, if Rutgers kind of got their receivers more involved behind the line of scrimmage and used some more opportunities to kind of, maybe take, and maybe they will take advantage of it, but we just haven't seen it so far this season.
Yeah.
I think Manis has only thrown the ball behind the line of scrimmage 10 times this season so far, and that is the lowest percentage of attempts of any quarterback in the Big Ten. He throws the ball behind the line of scrimmage less than 8% of the time, which is not necessarily a bad thing. He has a super high ADOT, which is cool, but it does make for some more difficult completions, and it doesn't fake out the defense as well as other ones. So the next closest is Luke Altmaier. He's at 10%
Mm.
of his attempts. So less than 8%. He's the only one that's really that low at all in the Big Ten, and it's pretty interesting. Who do you think has the highest percentage of passes behind the line of scrimmage, Zach, in the Big Ten?
Oh, I don't know who.
We just previewed him earlier. It's Demond Williams.
Ah, yes,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to take Minnesota in this one, 27-24. I think it's going to be a close game, and I think
Mm.
Minnesota comes out with it. I think the home environment for Minnesota really helps out, but I would not be surprised if Rutgers gets this one at all. This is going to be a very close game to me.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
all right, ready to do our last game here, Zach?
Let's do it.
This is the big one. Oregon at Penn State. Oregon is traveling to Happy Valley. Penn State on FanDuel is favored by 3.5 in this one. The over/under for this game is set at 52.5. This is gonna be a game that honestly, whoever wins it, Zach, is probably gonna be the number one team in the country, don't you think?
I think it depends on what Ohio State looks like and Miami look like. At the very least, they'll be the number 3 team in the country for
Well, Penn
sure.
State's already number two, aren't they?
No, they dropped to 3
They dropped to three.
in the
So
AP poll.
yeah, but Oregon's number six.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I
I don't
think
know. I just feel like these AP voters are dying to have somebody else be number one.
I don't know. I don't know if they will pick Oregon might. I don't know about Penn State. I think people will still distrust Penn State even if they beat Oregon.
Well, let me ask you this: whoever wins this game, are you going to make them number one in your power rankings of the Big Ten?
I
Let's say
think
close win, win it with not a field goal at the buzzer, but a field goal late in the game. Whoever wins it, are they number one in the Big Ten for you?
not necessarily because I think we still don't know much about Texas, but like if Ohio State goes out and smokes Washington, then no. Like so, I think it's dependent on what Ohio State does. It's dependent on what Indiana does. Like if Indiana goes out and beats Iowa 59-7, then that changes things. So I think a lot of it depends on how these teams look and how they perform. But I'll say this: the winner of this game is almost a lock to go to the playoff, right? Because Penn State
Yeah.
really they have two big games after this: Indiana and Ohio State. And I think you could lose both of them if you beat Oregon and go to the playoff. And I think with Oregon, if they win, they get Indiana, they get SC and Washington. It's not a virtual lock, but I mean it's fairly close to that.
At Iowa on the schedule too for Penn State.
Oh yeah, that at Iowa.
Nebraska at
Iowa's
home.
gonna
Nebraska, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I agree. The two biggest ones are the back-to-back games to start November at Ohio State and then Indiana. Those are the two biggest ones on the schedule after this Oregon game. So
mm-hmm.
we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, very interesting. So Zach, the Noah Whittington is supposed to be back in this one. Probable. That's good news. But honestly, you know they have a really deep running back room there at Oregon. So I don't know if it was I shouldn't say it was not the biggest concern in the world. That's disrespectful to Noah Whittington. He's a good back, but he's expected to be back. Um, Zach, I'm curious your thoughts on this game. How you think it's going to go? You know, the matchups, all that stuff. What are you watching for in this one?
Yeah, so it's funny. Before we came on the air, I actually watched a few things. I watched Oregon State. I watched Penn State Villanova, and then I watched the Penn State Oregon Big Ten championship game from a year ago. And I think something that really caught my attention in watching the Big Ten championship back between these two teams is how different the offense looked for Penn State. Now, part of that is they don't have Tyler Warren anymore, but it wasn't just Tyler Warren, it was how they got the running backs in the passing game involved. And I feel like that hasn't been something that they've done this year, but that was a very effective part of their offense against the Ducks last year. I think the other thing that was interesting for me in watching that Big Ten championship game was just how efficient Dylan Gabriel is. And this is not to say that Dante Moore is not efficient, but I do wonder, while I think Dante Moore is a much better NFL prospect, I do wonder how much his youth might hinder the Ducks going into Happy Valley.
So similar to the Julian Sayin to Washington type of
Yep.
deal.
Yep.
Yeah. I do think that it's a little bit better because I think Will Stein draws up more of the easy access stuff for
Yes.
Dante
Yeah.
Moore than it seems like Ryan Day and Brian Hartline draw up for Julian Saint. It feels like when they need a throw, Will Stein, he goes easy access, something to kind of just get Dante Moore going, whereas Ryan Day and Brian Hartline will just lean on the defense like they did against Texas, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that that's wrong. It's just kind of two different approaches. I think the approach of what Will Stein does helps the quarterback more, at least from my experience and from talking to other quarterbacks, but it's also a little bit more risky, right? Because you could have something sniffed out and a turnover done or something like that that could kind of change the game. So I'm very interested to see how this game goes, how the everything happens. I'm very interested to see the Oregon offensive line. I've been high on the Oregon offensive line this entire season. I was high
Yep.
on them in the preseason, and I feel like I've been justified in that. However, Langdon Tangwell, the Penn
Mm-hmm.
State
I was
former
going to
offensive
bring
lineman,
this up.
Yep, he did a really good breakdown on, if you haven't, gone and saw his channel. I assume if you've seen this channel, you've probably seen his, but he did a really good Oregon preview for offense, and he showed how Isaiah World does struggle with what's it called, push.
Pass protection. Pass
Well,
protection.
pass protection, but not like speed pass rushers, like the more physical ones that come right at you. There's a term for it, but I'm
Hmm.
blanking on it right now. But
Bull
when
rush.
they
Bull rush.
bull rush, yes, thank you. When they essentially are bull rushing the offensive tackle, and Langdon Tangle was pointing out, he struggles with his base, and that's something that denied Dennis Sutton, who's on that side that World is going to face a lot. He kind of specializes in. Right? It's something that he does a lot. He's not the Abdul Carter type where he's kind of speed rush around the side, spin move,
Hmm.
stuff like that. He can do that. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good pass rusher. But that's something that he does a lot more. And that could be a very difficult situation for Isaiah World. I think Oregon will go pretty run heavy in this one because they know those limitations, because they know that the interior of their offensive line really is where the strength is of this offensive line. Their center is fantastic. They do a really good job in the run game. And honestly, they're kind of like Northwestern, not to the extent of the bad pass protection. They're fine in pass protection, but in to the extent of the run blocking. Like they are just such a
Hmm.
physical offensive line and do such a good job of getting downhill. And I think that's something we really have to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the keys to the game is how much of a draw can Zane Durant and Deni Dennis Sutton, Chaz Coleman, and all those guys can they get up front?
Do
Because
you think they'll play Chaz Coleman a lot in this one?
I think I think they will in pass like in obvious passing downs.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Because because I think well, but here's the danger is if you play him, Dante Moore can escape on you, obviously. And so
Right.
does that open you up for quarterback run down the field?
Right.
But I do like I honestly think one of the X factors in this game might be Zane Durant
Mm-hmm.
because can he push in the middle but also keep contain? Because I think that's going to be have to be one of the ways that they really defend Dante Moore as a run pass threat is if you can push the pocket up and allow your defensive ends to have contain, that makes things a lot more challenging both to step out in the pocket but also to be able to run outside. So I honestly wonder if Zane Durant is one of my most important players in this game.
I would say he is. I would say the entire defensive line for Penn State is really, really important in this one, specifically the defensive tackles, those interior guys, for sure. Xavier Gilliam as well, Alonzo Ford. I mean, all of those guys are going to be very important in this
Mm-hmm.
game. We'll see what they look like against Oregon's offensive line, but to me, the X factor for Oregon, obviously the offensive line and the rushing and stuff. The X factor for me is this tight end Kenyon Sadiq. I'm going to show you a little bit of what he can do, but I think we just need to appreciate how versatile some of these tight ends are. And in particular, Kenyon Sadiq is incredibly versatile. I got three plays for you here. I want you to see. So Kenyon Sadiq is number 18. Where's he? I think he's right there in this one. But just check him out in this play. The screen, the yards after catch that he gets, and then also the way that Oregon is able to get guys out in front. So he leaks off there, and then boom, look at these three guys right here, all out in front. You got two DBs. Next one here. My microphone's in the way, so all right. So he's lined up over on this side this time. I want you to watch him block Aiden Hubbard well on that one, but still. And then last one. This just kind of shows you Sadiq's receiving ability. So we just saw him block a defensive end, one of the better pass rushing defensive ends in the Big Ten. Zach.
I think what you showed is he's a multi-level player, right? He can
Mm-hmm.
block, he's dynamic at blocking, he's a dynamic receiving threat, and you can line him up in a number of different positions and he
Mm-hmm.
can make an impact. And that
And
when
that gives
you
the defense a hard time trying to set up for it
yeah,
too, right? Because you have no idea. Is he going to be on the line of
right.
scrimmage? Is he going to be? I mean, you could possibly get rid of one of your tackles for him if you wanted to. Now it wouldn't do all that good for you, but still,
Yeah.
like you could move one of your tackles to the other side of the offensive line for him.
Yeah. Now, here's the counterpoint to all that. There is a guy who did a very good job of shutting down guys like this a year ago. Guys like Kenyon Sadiq, guys like Terrence Ferguson, guys like Tyler Warren. And his name is Jim Knowles. And Jim Knowles no longer coaches for Ohio State. He now coaches for Penn State. And unlike some who might say that it takes his defense 3 years to, form, or that he had no say in the defense during the playoff run last year, I'm here to tell you he is still a mastermind. He's still a mad scientist, and he's gonna be ready for Will Stein. He's gonna be ready for whatever Oregon throws at him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Jim Knowles showed last year. He had that one tough game against Oregon, right? And there was all the rumors that came with it afterward about like, oh, he wasn't even calling the plays after that. He wasn't even doing this. He wasn't even doing that. And I don't believe it.
Don't listen
I
to it.
don't think anybody is correct who's saying that. And I'm not trying to come at Ohio State fans that were saying that. I get why, they're trying to say, well, we didn't need him. We were that much better. But I do wonder what this game is going to look like, because the first game against Oregon didn't look great, and whether it was Ryan Day or James Knowles or maybe it was both of them, whatever it was that adjusted, is he going to be ready for what Oregon throws at him this year? He was obviously ready in the Rose Bowl. They gave up 21 points, but those were kind of garbage time points a little bit. He was obviously ready for him in the Rose Bowl, but is Will Stein going to adjust from that? Because I
Yeah.
think Will Stein, he has an argument for being the best offensive coordinator in the Big Ten. I know everybody loves Andy Kotelnicki, and I ranked him number one. Don't get me wrong, but there's a real argument that Will Stein is the best offensive coordinator in the Big
No.
Ten, and he has a lot of options this year. Really good
Yeah.
offensive line. Kenyon Sadiq, DeCorian Moore has been fantastic this season. I do wonder how much of DeCorian Moore will translate against higher competition against Penn
Yeah.
State. Some of the stuff that he's done, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's fantastic, but some of the stuff he's done, it was almost kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work against the Ohio States and the Penn States of the world. But we'll get to see, and that's one of the best things about these types of games is
Yep.
these guys get to be tested. And you best believe if Corey Moore goes out there and gets 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, we're gonna be singing his praises on this show like crazy.
Yep. I
So
I'll just say this, and it leads into what you said, leads into one of my concerns for Oregon is I think Oregon in some ways is similar to Indiana in that they have a system that they really pour into and they are just deadly efficient. But when you get them off schedule, it can really derail things. And now I'm not saying I think Oregon has more talent than Indiana. So Oregon fans don't get mad at me. Indiana fans, I'm sorry. Here's my concern though. What happens when they actually run into a team that can defend them sideline to sideline and over the top? Because I think Penn State has that personnel. And I think that's a concern for me, particularly because of how unproven Oregon's like key playmakers are, but also the fact that again, they're going into hostile environment. And the whiteout, like going to Penn State, if you go to a normal Penn State game, it's loud. I think Autzen is probably the most intimidating atmosphere. I think I say that not from experience, but from what other players have said. But if Penn State is in this game throughout, this will be the most raucous environment that I think Oregon will have ever faced. And I say that knowing that Washington is big. I know Autzen's big. I think in general, they are actually harder experiences to manage. But the whiteout is in particular a very unique and very difficult experience. And so, and if Penn State's crowd is in it throughout, that becomes very problematic for Oregon.
yeah, I mean, it's one of the great wonders of college football, right? The whiteout, going to it, seeing it on TV. I know some people try to, maybe talk about how it's not all that big of a deal, but it is. It's a huge deal, and it means a lot. And honestly, Penn State is going to have to thrive off of it. My concern with Penn State is that if they were more equal with what I've seen between Oregon, and I'm going to mention here in a second, I'm not talking about completely team wide, I'm talking about one player in particular here. If
Mhm.
they were more equal with the primary player that touches the ball the most, I'd feel better about it. But I think this road environment and his home field advantage only goes so far. If your quarterback has not been very good this season against lesser competition, I don't feel super confident in your team's ability to be able to move the ball on offense against a very good defense. And I know Penn State fans are concerned about it as well. He has the skills to be one of the best, if not the best, in the Big Ten, but so far he's not been. Zach, do you
Mhm.
know the four Big Ten QBs that have the lowest QBR in the Big Ten?
I know. I'm pretty sure Drew Aller's one of them.
Drew Aller is third last. Yes.
Nico,
Nope.
Preston Stone.
He's last. Yes.
Okay. Ryan Brown.
No.
I don't know the other two.
Mark Gronowski and Danny O'Neill.
Mm. Yeah. I yeah. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I I will I will so Penn State sports talk. Y'all haven't
We've been
watched us
praising
play
Penn
this
State
week.
this entire time. I mean, the one time we say anything bad about Penn State, we're accused of not watching. Yes, we run a Big Ten podcast and we don't actually watch the games. It's the most comical thing
Well,
anybody ever says to us.
I he is saying you got to look beyond the stats, which I agree. And I think that was something
No,
that I
it's
was
just the whole comment. We get it all the time. It's the whole comment of like, well, you don't actually watch the games. It's like, why would we run a Big Ten podcast if we don't want to actually watch the games? Like,
yeah.
it's just a comical comment to me. I'm not trying to come at Penn State sports talk. It's more just the uh, commonness of the comment and how kind of crazy it is. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Um do you think cuz I was watching the Nova game back again. I thought there were some things that Drew Aller did that actually I look back, I'm like, that's there's some improvement there. Like the thing that concerns, but I think you're right. There's concerns about Aller, some of his decision making, some of his processing, his reading the field. I'm like, oh man, this
Oh,
should be
and his
better.
hesitancy too.
Yeah. I do a question though, how much of that hesitancy is more about installing new parts of the offense and how much of it is he's just not willing to let it rip? Because
I mean,
I
how much new stuff are they installing? It's year two.
that
Kotoniki should have
that's
most of his offense installed.
well, sorry, installation is probably not the point. I'm working on weaknesses, I should
Okay.
say.
Okay.
That like you're trying to smooth out plays that maybe aren't as good that you're trying to smooth out. How
Okay.
much of it? Because again, I go back to that Big Ten championship game. And I'm like, they're not doing anything with Singleton in the passing game at all.
Hmm.
And that was a huge part of their offense. They've got Luke Reynolds involved a little bit, but not to the extent that they've had tight ends involved in the past. So
Yeah,
I
he's not Tyler Ward. Not
no,
yet. Not yet at
no,
least.
no, but I'm just saying there's there are plays there that I think they could have exploited the first 3 weeks that they haven't. And
I
that's not them going vanilla. I think it's more they're working on things to improve their offense.
Yeah. I wonder how much they miss Bo Pribula with some of his packages. And I'm not going to say the
Yes.
crazy thing of like, oh, they chose the wrong quarterback. Obviously Drew Aller has a ton of talent. He's going to probably be a first round draft pick. He has talent oozes out of him, his size, his arm talent. Just go watch that Oregon game from last year. And that's probably one of the most maddening things for people like me because I see the talent. I see how
Mhm.
awesome Drew Aller is and some of the throws that he makes. I mean, last year when he had the Oregon guy hanging off of him as he's making the throw to the end zone and splits it between two defenders, like holy cow, to make a
Yep.
throw like that. But then I'm watching tape and he is checking it down to the running back when he's got guys running not wide open but open enough that he should be throwing it to him downfield. And it's like you have this amazing arm, and there's sometimes when we see it, and there's other times when we don't see it. And to me, it's one of the biggest things.
Mhm.
And even seeing young quarterbacks, Zach, the top four quarterbacks in the Big Ten, according to QBR. Do you want to guess them again, or you want me to just say them?
You just say it.
Jada Mayava, Demond Williams Jr., Fernando Mendoza, and Dante Moore.
Yeah, that
Like
sounds about right.
those aren't 3 year starters. You've got the guys that are, Drew Aller and Luke Altmaier is not out of the woods yet either. I think Caliac Manis has been really good on PFF. He doesn't necessarily have the QBR stat, which is fine. You don't have to have every single stat. But it's concerning for me, and that's honestly the reason why I
Mhm.
picked Oregon to win this game. I don't feel
Mm.
super confident in the pick. I think that it could go either way, but I did pick Oregon to win this game, and Drew Aller was a big reason why. And I said it in the preseason. If Penn State wins the national championship this year, it's going to be because Drew Aller improved a whole heck of a lot, not necessarily in his arm ability, but his ability to see coverages and be confident and look down the field. He doesn't seem super confident right now. I don't even know what needs to happen to him. But man, if he was just a more confident quarterback, that's my guess. I don't know for sure, but that's my guess. He could be the best quarterback in the nation. And I'm just not seeing it. So I got
Mhm.
Oregon winning this one 30-27. I don't feel
Mm.
great about it, but the Drew Aller, Dante Moore battle played pretty big in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a fair pick. I go back to that scalability, and I am concerned for two things for Oregon. One is I am concerned about their ability to to run their offense to the same capabilities against a much better defense. And yes, they're going to score, they're going to be good, but I just wonder how efficient they're going to be
Mm-hmm.
when they face line play like this and defensive play like this. I also think that some of Oregon's struggles stopping the run might come to roost. And what's the best way to neutralize any weaknesses with your quarterback is to have a strong running game. And I think we're going to see not just a running game with, I think we're going to see the running backs involved both with the run and the pass. I think that's going to matter. I think environment's going to matter. And I think at the end of the day, while I think Oregon might be the more talented team, and I think they do have the better quarterback, I like Penn State to win by a field goal as well. Well, not as well. You have Oregon winning by a field goal. I have Penn State winning by a field goal. 28-25. I think Oregon goes for two early because that's who they are. Um, they'll kick a field goal at some point and get two other touchdowns, and Penn State will be old faithful and get four touchdowns. And I think they win it late.
Mm-hmm.
And
I enjoy,
yes, I understand that Duck fans will say I'm not smart, but
I
that's
enjoy
okay.
James. He's saying JR is the smartest man on the planet. I picked Oregon. Zach did not pick Oregon. Zach, not so much.
I don't need to be the smartest man in the planet.
I was gonna say if Penn State wins, you just come back here and have a big brain cap on or something and say who's
No, no,
smart
no,
now. I'm just messing
no,
with
no,
you.
no, 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 no.
Um, but yeah, so regardless, it's gonna be a great game. I think whoever wins this game is gonna be the number one team in the nation. I think they'll probably pass up Ohio State. I think if Washington was a higher ranked team, that might not be the case, but Washington's not even got a single vote for top 25 AP poll. So I think that impacts things. Whoever wins this game to me is the number one team in the nation, most likely. I don't know if I'll rank them there or not, but I think the AP poll voters will, and then whoever loses this game, I don't think they drop unless it's like an embarrassing loss, which I don't see that happening. They won't drop below 8. Definitely not out of the top 10.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I say Oregon's number 6 right now.
I think they'd go to like 9 or 10
Yeah.
at the
So
lowest.
Indiana pass them.
I mean, depends on what they do against Iowa, but I would think so.
I think if Oregon loses, they stay in front of Indiana. If Penn State loses, I think they go behind Indiana.
I think that's actually a very fair thought
Yeah,
because I
because
think the
Penn State's got
perception.
like the stigma with them, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
perception. That's a better word for it. Yeah.
yeah,
So, well, that's what we got. We
yeah.
covered 6 games in this episode and somehow went 2 hours doing it. So,
I don't know if the viewers could tell. I am dog tired, man. I'm going right to
you
bed after this.
you had your tea or your coffee or whatever earlier, and it helped for a little bit, but it couldn't do the whole time, huh?
No, 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 no. Well, it was decaf tea.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Organic blood orange rooibos
Oh
from
boy.
Trader Joe's.
Oh boy. That's an interesting name. Blood Orange Roibus.
It's actually very good.
Well, I'm not saying it's
It's
not good.
it's
I assume it is
excellent.
good. But
Yeah.
well, Zach, sweet dreams to you, and sweet dreams to everybody else if they are listening to this podcast before bed. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you joining us for these previews. I enjoy these weeks when it's only like 6, 7 games because we can really dig deep into these games and really kind of put our opinions out there. And it also gives people more opportunities to clip us and put us on social media, which is just awesome as well. So I'm sure plenty of Penn State fans will be clipping me if they win the game, and plenty of Oregon fans will clip you as well if they win the game, Zach. So we both have something to look forward to.
I don't know how I feel about this, but
Yeah,
yeah, someone's gonna get clipped. It's not gonna go well. So
somebody will.
thanks, Joshua. We appreciate it.
Joshua's not going to clip us. He says, "Good show, fellas. Thank you, Joshua. We appreciate it. Have a good bye week there, Joshua. We look forward to talking the Badgers next week. I'm really looking forward to see what Luke Fickle is cooks up for coming out of the bye week. But should be a good time. Should be a good time this weekend. A lot of interesting games. Gonna change a lot of stuff in the Big Ten. We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.